Breaking news, following the DUI arrest of Eric Milano, the CEO of CC Entertainment, best known as Chuck E. Cheese's, further investigation into Eric's background led authorities to findings of FLSA violations in his company. Employees at Chuck E. Cheese have reported wage abuse by the company as they are expected to work long hours without overtime compensation. But California law and Federal Labor Standards Act protects employees by making it mandatory to receive overtime pay for hours worked over 40 in a work week or over 8 in one day. To tell us more about this story, we'll send you live over to our field reporter, Marvin Gonzalez.
Morning, Carla. I'm here with Eugene and Mary Lou, ex-employees of Chuck E. Cheese. So the first question I have for you guys is, were you ever told to skip lunch or a break by a manager?
Yes, my manager would tell me to skip my break or my lunch when it was busy. I would work 8 hours straight with no rest. I would get home exhausted and almost to the point of passing out.
Oh wow, that doesn't sound good at all. Did you ever think your employer was doing something wrong by making you work more or work overtime? How did that seem to you?
I didn't think any of it. I didn't know it was illegal, but I'm glad he got caught.
Yeah, right?
Yes, sir.
Alright, Eugene, do you know what a premium payment is?
I have no clue what that is.
Okay, so basically if an employer doesn't pay you for a lunch or a break, he has to pay you 1 full hour of work as opposed to only 30 minutes. Do you know if you ever received anything like that?
I did not receive anything like that. Put my boss in jail.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I think that'd be the best thing right there. Alright, Eugene, if you could just give me a second to get Mary Lou's 2 cents. Alright, so when did you notice that you were not receiving the overtime pay that you were?
Well, I actually just started recently to keep track of my hours. I started plotting, every week what I worked, and I tried to compare it to my pay rate or my checks, and they were not, matching up. So that's when I knew something was wrong.
Oh yeah, that doesn't sound good at all. But overall, now that the case is over, do you think the verdict is fair to all the workers?
Yes, because we actually now have our voices heard, our concerns. I know that the government cares about us, and it shows that their employers should do that to their employees. We're working hard, we're working for them, and they should take care of us as well.
Yeah, that sounds like a really great plan right there. Thank you very much, Mary Lou. Thank you, Eugene.
Thank
You heard it here
sir.
first. Good verdict from these guys. Back to you.
Welcome back to the studio. Joining us live from Washington, D.C. is our expert correspondent, Vivian Kwan. Vivian, how are you doing? Can you just shed some light on the case we've been hearing about this morning regarding Chuck E. Cheese Entertainment's overtime abuse laws?
I'm fine, thank you, Carla. So, to elaborate, overtime abuse is nothing new to the state of California. To prevent this from happening, employees must know their rights. I cannot stress this enough. Know your rights. A similar case like this happened in 1999 with Ramirez versus Yosemite Company. Yosemite sells bottled waters, cups, and rents out water coolers. A similar case like this happened in 1999 with Ramirez versus Yosemite Company. Yosemite sells bottled waters, cups, coffee, and rents out water coolers. Peter Ramirez was employed by Yosemite as a route salesman. He was in charge of gaining customers and delivering product. After Ramirez left the company, he filed a complaint against his employers for underpaid overtime wages. It was unclear if Ramirez was considered exempt because they never discussed it. Yosemite filed a countersuit against him for damages to the company's clientele because he allegedly attempted to solicit Yosemite's customers after he left. In the end, Yosemite won the case. The California Supreme Court ruled that Ramirez was an outside salesperson, which is considered an exempt employee.
Vivian, so you mentioned employees should know their rights, but how should employees ensure that they are defined correctly as to whether they are exempt or non-exempt?
One test to determine eligibility for overtime pay is the duties test, assessing the actual work being done rather than only job titles or job descriptions. An employee must be mainly administrative, professional, or executive in nature to be exempt from overtime. B, to be exempt from as an administrative employee, an employee must perform non-manual work as his or her primary duty, directly related to management, policies, or general business operations, or perform work in educational administration. To be exempt from as a professional employee, an employee's primary duties must be consistently involve discretion, judgment, and work in which is predominantly intellectual and varied. To be exempt as an executive employee, an employee must regularly direct the work of 2 or more full-time employees and have management as his or her primary duty. An exempt employee must also make over a certain amount of money in a year and must be paid salary. Exempt employees are not eligible for overtime pay, meal and rest period requirements, uniform requirements, and other protections of the Industrial Welfare Commission's orders.
So can an employer refuse to pay overtime?
No, Basic California Labor Code 510 protects hours worked over 8 hours in a day, 40 hours in a week at 1.5 times your regular rate, and over 12 hours per day or over 8 hours on the 7th consecutive day at 2 times your regular rate.
Vivian, lastly, can you clarify if bonuses count in overtime pay calculation?
Yes, California labor law requires that the rate of pay on which overtime is calculated include hourly wages, salaries, and wage augments, such as shift differentials, non-discretionary bonuses, commissions, or piece rate pay if received by the employee. To calculate overtime hourly wage only is an overtime bonus violation.
Vivian, this has been very insightful. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I see the CEO of Chuck E. Cheese, Eric Milano. Go interview him.
Follow me, come on. Mr. Milano. Mr. Milano, can I have a second? Can I have a second? Do you have any response about what the case ended up with?
No comment.
Anything?
No comment.
Nothing.
No
You don't want to
comment.
say anything to the people.
Stop recording.
No,
It's
you
a
have
court.
to answer this.
It's gonna get
You
settled.
can't run away from your problems. You have to face them once in a while.
No.
All right, as you can see, Eric Milano doesn't care about his employees. Back to you, Carla.